Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Gold. I will be your moderator today for today's webinar. Just a quick couple housekeeping items before we get started. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to receive this recording post-event. As a reminder, we do have a Q&A chat box at the very bottom of your screen, so please don't hesitate to ask all questions. We'll try to get to them during or after the event. And other than that, I'm going to let Asaf take it away. Thank you, Asaf.
Thank you, Courtney. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited to be here with you. And today we're going to discuss about how to continuously secure your software supply chain, essentially using the JFrog platform. Before jumping into the technical part of explaining what are the features and the items that we're going to cover, first, small introduction about myself. My name is Asaf Cohen, and I lead the security solutions at JFrog, and been in the cybersecurity field for the past 20 years, doing mostly hands-on things such as penetration testing, defense operations, and so on, hunting it. So I come from a solid security background, and I joined JFrog because, as part of the video position, because we can better together can deliver best security to our customers using our unique platform. So enough about me. Let's go straight ahead to the agenda. And as Courtney mentioned, please feel free to ask any questions. Just write it down on the chat box, and we'll answer it later. Okay, so today the agenda is very simple, is to cover the challenges that we see that developers are facing while trying to have security DevSecOps operation. Then we're going to cover the overview about what does JFrog platform enable us for DevSecOps. And later on, we're going to wrap up with a demo. It's going to be a pretty long demo that's going to cover all the checkbox and items that exist as part of this explanation. But again, if you have any question, feel free to set it up. In this topic, we're going to cover many things in the JFrog platform, not just specifically Xray, which is the software composition analysis solution that JFrog is having, but also going to run through the security benefits of having JFrog Artifactory with distribution and JFrog pipelines, pretty much covering the main security features in each one. So let's start with the brief description about the developer workflow. It's a very simple and straightforward diagram of essentially a developer that writes and develops code on its workstation. Then let's assume that the developer is using npm package. With npm package, it has JSON, it has package.json file that represents and describes the open source software components that should be included as part of this package. And once the developer runs npm install and do a git commit, essentially the packages are being pulled into the developer workstation. And once the git commit command is being triggered, the CI, in this case Jenkins, the CI server kicks in and produces the battery. And this is from 10,000 feet, the workflow that developers are having on their day-to-day work. And what we see in here is that there is no security whatsoever for the pipeline. There is no protection against dependency confusion, no protection against typo squatting, no tracing, visibility, security features, caching, signed pipelines. Essentially, the developer is potentially can be attacked by malicious actors. And what we're going to see right now is how does the JFrog end-to-end solution allows to have DevSecOps as part of this motion or DevOps operation. So what we see is a very big and scary slide, but don't worry, we're going to go piece by piece in this diagram and going to explain about the features and how does the different products interact and help to set using one another the whole security operation. So what we see, let's start with the public repositories. And we see that the main product that we have at JFrog is Artifactory. Artifactory is a product that manage all the batteries that you have within the organization. It's a battery management platform that pulls, that has pretty much many types of repositories. If you're familiar with it, we have remote repositories, which are repositories that represent publicly available repositories such as Maven or NPM and so on. We have local repositories that are repositories for placing your first-party code packages that should be accessible only to your company. We have virtual repositories that represent with one URL a combination or a set of local and remote repositories. And using Artifactory, we recommend to set up different repositories for each team. So each team should have its own set of repositories that represent the dev, the QA, and the pod environment. And by that matter, you can best manage your whole bin-ops or the operation and promotion of binaries between one step to the other. So this is very important using Artifactory best practices to set up a set of repositories per team that is well documented, that we can understand what each team is doing and which binaries are being used by each team. Obviously, Artifactory does the optimization of not storing multiple copies of the same package. It does this using checksums, so it's a smart storage, also a secure storage. So the way Artifactory store the binaries is in a secure manner. So we're going to learn about Artifactory and the security features that the different repositories can be configured with in order to protect against priority resolution and type squatting. We're going to start with Artifactory features. We're going to talk about Xray, which is the software composition analysis solution that JFrog is having. And Xray is tied up really good into the Artifactory and the platform itself. So Xray can scan and be essentially a gatekeeper, application gatekeeper for incoming packages that can scan repositories, builds, and also release bundles. So Xray can be integrated in every step in the CI process and can provide you with the visibility and control to have a secure binaries that match the security policy that you would like to have in your organization. We're going to talk about distribution. Distribution is a solution for creating release bundles. Release bundles are essentially a zip that has binaries inside it, and this zip is cryptographically signed in an unmutable manner. And using distribution, this can be in a secure manner distributed to the edge, edge nodes that can deliver the binary close up to the last half quarter of a mile before being delivered to the end devices. We're going to talk about the whole permission set that Artifactory and the whole platform can offer. We have the signed pipelines, which is a feature in the JFrog pipelines. JFrog pipelines is a JFrog homemade CI solution that support best practices when it comes to security, such as signed pipelines and also secret rotation using a secure vault that will keep the passwords inside the pipelines. So the YAML files that DevOps are being exposed to only have the friendly name that represent the identity of the integration, and that way you can store all the passwords in one place, and not have those passwords scattered around the different YAML files in the DevOps servers, in the CI servers. So far we talked about, I would say, what I call the backend, where the security operations and DevOps have full control and to have visibility, as well as control and enforcement of the policy that they would like to have a solid secured pipeline. Now I'm going to refer to what I like to call the front end or the developer's view, that the developers can utilize the Xray plugin, which is a plugin that integrates natively into the developer's IDE in order to, in the IDE itself, show the potential vulnerabilities of those open source software components and enable the developers to make the right decision. Because we as security experts, we have visibility to what we see here about artifacts and their CVEs, and we can do reporting on it, but eventually we would need to work with the developer to solve the issues. So that's why it's very important to enable the developer and empower the developer to use the plugin and make the right decision, because it will save both the developer and the security operations a lot of time. We're also going to demonstrate that we have a CLI that works in parallel, that have the same capabilities but in parallel to the Xray plugin, that can run dependency scanning on source code and utilize the same API towards the Xray server, same as the Xray plugin, and it can run on the source code and on the dependency that are being placed in the source code file, and it will run dependency scanning on those projects, again to enable the shift left approach and empower the developers to use those capabilities either in their native plugin or in anywhere they would like, because the CLI can be integrated to many type of places. Any questions so far before jumping into the explanation about deep dive into Xray and then going on to the demo? Not yet? Okay, great. All right, so zooming in on the Xray piece, we're gonna also see a demo later on about everything, but essentially Xray, as demonstrated before, can be integrated as part of the CI/CD process and enable DevSecOps because it's being so integrated as part of the Artifactory. Artifactory is where the developers and the DevOps work, and having the security operation integrated into this workflow enables secure DevSecOps operation that have coverage of both new artifacts that are coming in, both every build, and as a gatekeeper for the release bundle before being released to the edge nodes. So the way it works, at any time you have an artifact or a build or release bundle, Xray can be triggered to scan based on a predefined set of policies and watches. We're going to learn about this later on. So it will run the scanning against one or more policy that can be configured. And each policy you're going to see that can trigger a violation with different severity. And what's more important is the post-detection actions that can be made. So you will see that each policy has an if and a then statements. So the if is what we will configure based on the severity or the CVSS score, and the then allow you to automate the process based on the security policy that you would like to have. So you can start with we recommend to start with setting up notification post-action rules, such as send an email, write to a Slack channel, configure it to send something on a webhook, or you can do more restrictive actions, such as prevent the download of the binary, fail the build, or block the distribution of the release bundle. So using this flexibility of the Xray product, you can set up the different policies to different stages in your CI and have a strict security policy that match what your organization looks for. And more importantly, is you're going to see in the demo itself that we have many types of menus and many types of configuration, which allow you to have the flexibility to define what you want to have. And by this, I mean that it's not about solving all the CVEs. It's about, because you will never get to a situation that you solve all the CVEs and you get a Docker or an application that has 0 CVEs, because 80% of the code of the products are based on open source software components. And open source software components might have CVEs. And as we see the world moving forward, we see that many eventually each product might have CVE this and that. And those CVEs, I'm not saying that those are good or bad. I'm saying that it depends on what you would like to achieve within your organization. Essentially, if you're a small startup, or you're a mature company, or you're a very mature company that sells products to the government, you should not, it doesn't make sense for you to have the same Xray policy for each one of those companies. So by having this flexibility, you can fine-tune the policy the way you would like and make sure that you deliver the secure boundaries that you want to have. For instance, later on in the demo, we're going to see a release bundle that has been scanned by Xray that has CVEs, but it does not have any violations, because it's good enough for us, because all the CVEs are ranked as like 5 and below, for instance. Okay, so this is about the Xray. Also, I mentioned beforehand the shift left and the empowerment of the developers. So the plugin supports those IDEs that should cover all the relevant IDEs that developers are using today, as well as we have the CLI that can have the dependency scan and the on-demand scan. This is how it looks like. So we're going to see this also in the demo. So what we're going to see in this demo, we're going to see we're going to start with the developer view of the ID integration and the CLI. How does it look like from the developer point of view? And how can this empower the developer to identify the vulnerable packages? Later on, we're going to see Artifactory and how does the virtual repositories, volatility resolution, include exclude patterns, the bill info and the logs, and the whole promotion can help you to create protection against dependency confusion, typo squatting, and generate SBOM. We're going to later on see Xray. How does the software composition analysis, when it comes to the CVEs and the reporting capabilities, allow you to protect against, identify and prevent usage of vulnerable packages and get retrievability. We're going to talk about JFrog pipelines to understand what are signed pipelines and secret notations and so on, that as well as distribution of the signed batteries. And those two last components can help to protect against man in the middle or intervention as part of the CI process. So all in all, we can see that the JFrog platform provided end-to-end security solutions, starting from the developer all the way to the end batteries, to help to get a security of the batteries that you produce, and B, protect your pipeline and make sure that the pipeline getting the best security features. Okay, so let's go straight ahead to the demo. I would first like to start with the IDE, just to show you how does it look. So in this case, you see that we have Visual Studio Code, we have npm package that we built, we have the package.json, and we can see that we've declared those dependencies. And you can see that we have the JFrog plugin installed on this IDE. And as soon as I'm going to go in here, I can see all the dependencies and the transitive dependencies, meaning the dependencies that they include as well. So you get full visibility to all the open source software components that are important as part of your binary, and this is very important. And for each library, you can see the artifact details and the issues. So let's just go to this one, and you can see that we identified that this component is of this version with an npm with the relevant licenses, and we see that there is a security issue. We have this CVE for this component, and the fixed version is to use 4.0.0, for instance. So it's very simple and intuitive for the developer to just upgrade to the latest version, or essentially make the right decision when it comes to which open source software components to include while having the build. The second demonstration is about the CLI. I just ran it in advance. I'm going to run it here because I wanted to see like the results while it's loaded up. What it's doing right now behind the scene, the CLI scans the dependencies from the project, from the source code, just like we saw before. It sends the information through an API to the Xray server, and this produced this table of vulnerabilities. This, you can see, this is correlates to the plugin that we showed earlier. So we have these CVEs, we have the vulnerable packages. We know that we need to upgrade to this and that with the relevant CVSS score, and so on. And you can also run the CLI. Right now it runs without any context, but you can also have the watch that I'm going to talk about later on. But you can also include a context or a watch you would like to run the scan against. So this is how the developer can use the JFrog front-end components or front-end products to make the right decision. Now let's go on to the platform itself to see how does it look like on the platform for the security operations and the DevOps. So first, let me log in real quick. Okay. And I hope you can see here the diagram. Let's start. We started with the ID and the CLI functionality. Let's go into Artifactory and understand how can it help. How can it be configured to protect against dependency confusion and type squatting attack. So let's go to the repository section. You can see that we have the local, remote, and virtual. And for each local repository, you can, let's take this one as an example. First, I would recommend you to see that the important repositories are flagged to be scanned with Xray. That's one. And you can see it also has an include and exclude button. I'm going to explain shortly what is this. And you can see under the advanced tab that you can set up the priority resolution for the important, for the prioritized repositories that you would like to have during the resolution. What does it mean? And let's give a concrete example. Let's assume that I developed in my company. Let's assume that I work in a company named Asaf Company, very unique name. And I create inside my organization, I have my own private proprietary library, which is asaplib, for instance. So of course I would place asaplib in one of the local repositories because I don't want to publish it to the external internet. So I publish it in my local repositories, and in my code I all the time refer to asaplib latest. So whenever someone is going to resolve this package, it will utilize the virtual repository, which is the one URL that represents a set of local or remote repositories. And as soon as this asaplib library is going to be resolved using the virtual repository, it will go and look for all for the latest package. So it will first go to examine the local repositories. It will identify that I have asaplib version, let's say 2. And it will also going to check the other repositories with the target to find the latest. So let's assume a malicious actor somehow know that I developed with an internal package called asaplib, and is going to upload to the global repository a new package with the name asaplib version 1000. So Artifactory, as part of the resolution process, is going to look up for the latest, and that's how dependency confusion attack is being triggered. If someone is able to have the same package name with the newer version, so obviously the latest version is the one that's going to be eventually going to be in the resolution process, and this is what will be served to the developer and the CI system. By setting up the flag for the priority resolution repositories, it means that Artifactory first going to do the lookup for those prioritized repositories, meaning that as soon as it will do the search on the subset of repositories that are marked as priority resolution, it will find asaplib version 2 as the latest, and it will serve this. If it has not found the package in those set of prioritized resolution repositories, it will go and search for the other repositories, and that's how it will resolve from the external ones. But setting priority resolution on repositories, on local repositories that you have that have your internal IP will help you to protect against dependency confusion attack. And this is a very important feature to know about. So that's about an example about local repositories. Let's go on to remote repositories. Okay. In the remote repositories, let's take this one, for instance. You can see that, again, you can select whether you want to index or not this repository with Xray, as well as you can set up include and exclude patterns. Sorry, I missed this. Okay, here it is. Include and exclude patterns, which essentially using a regular expression, you can set up which artifacts you would like to resolve from this repository. So you can have either include patterns, or you can have also exclude pattern. As again, as best practice, if I would in my company, I would go for all the remote repository, going to exclude the pattern asaplib asterisk. And that way I can make sure that I don't have any type of squatting or anything that I did not intend to resolve from those remote repositories. So this is about the protection against type of squatting. When it comes to virtual repositories, so as mentioned, we have one URL that represents a set of local and remote repositories. And just for you to see, you can change the order of resolution, and you can see that anyway, JFrog platform always resolve first from the local repositories and then go to the remote one, just as a default action when it comes to the resolution process. And if you mark a set of local repositories as part of resolution, it will first go to look from them and then going to move forward. Okay, so we covered so far out of this diagram, we covered the IDE, we covered the dependency scanning, we covered the protection and the security features in Artifactory as part of the dependency confusion and type of squatting. And now we're ready to move on to Xray. So let's go to Xray. Okay. When it comes to Xray, so I'm going to explain what is a policy and what is watch, and how can you, by using these functionalities, can set up the right security policy that you would like to have. So let's start with creating a new policy. Let's call it SPOL, a description, whatever. And you can see that each policy can have one or more rules. What are those rules? You have the rule name, and you have the if and the then criteria. So let's start with the if. The if can be by severity, such as the low, medium, high, or critical, or you can find it with based on the CVSS score. So I can say that this policy or this rule is going to apply if the CVSS score is between 8 or 10. So this is the if, and if it matches the criteria, if it will go to the automatic action. That first it's going to generate a violation, that's for sure, and then the then action can be divided into two sections, like the notification area and the restriction area. So when it comes to notification, you can set up, you can trigger a webhook, you can notify the watchers, you can notify the deployer, you can set up custom emails, you can automatically create geo tickets. And when it comes to, if you want to get full control, you can block the download as well as unscan artifact from the repository. You can block the distribution of the release model, or you can also fail the build and set up a grace period of X amount of days, so you don't going to fail all the builds at once. But you can see all the flexibility when it comes to the post detection actions you can have. And using a watch, I'm going to show this shortly. You can also define on what you want to apply this policy on, a repository or a build or this bundle. And let's go straight ahead to this, just to show you an example of license. By the way, if you're interested in post compliance, you can also use Xray to have the same set of like the rule name, the if area, that you have the allowed license or the banned licenses, and you can mark like licenses that you would like to have, or unknown licenses or multiple licenses and so on. This is the if, and in the then you have the same set of operation of notification as well as prevention, I would say. So let's go to the watches. So once we define the policy that we would like to have in our organization, we can create a watch. A watch is the glue that associate the policy to the entities in JFrog platform. So you can see that you have the you can set up X amount number of policies you would like to have, and you want to assign this amount of policies to this and that repositories, or this and that build, or this and that release bundle. And you can have with full customizable manner to select the repositories or select the builds and so on. And by this, you pretty much have the whole flexibility. And going back to what I said earlier, the flexibility to define the security level that you would like to have with the different steps that you want to have in your security maturity, in the maturity of your security that you would like to have. Because a small startup should not have the same policies and watches as a mature company or mature corporate, I would say. And it's not the same as a mature company that sells to the government. It also depends if you sell something to the government, you make a mobile application, or you develop a Lambda to the cloud, whatever. Eventually, you have in here all the power you can have to get visibility as well as control on what's happening inside the pipeline. And this is very important. So developers have the empowerment to do and make the right decision, but you here using the platform have visibility and actions to take in real time as part of the DevOps operation. And this is very powerful when it comes to the enablement and the DevSecOps approach. You need to be tied into where your developers work and you need to enable security in those areas. If you have one platform that everyone are working collaboratively on it, that's the best case scenario. Okay, so once we define the policies and watches, let's go to see an Xray report. I'm just going to go switch on to the this dashboard of. I'm just going to take a Docker image because it's pretty interesting. So in this case, you see a build of a Docker. I choose a Docker just so I can show you the capabilities. Let's take, I don't know, let's take this build, for instance. And you can see for each build that we have the build info. And this field info is being populated using the JFrog CLI or the JFrog plugins that are integrated into CI systems, such as Jenkins and so on. We support a lot of CI servers, and it essentially gains all the information that is carried out during the build cycle. So you see the different format, you see the different properties, you see the different included libraries, environment variables, a lot of information you can gain in addition to the artifacts and the dependencies that were gained and produced during this build. So just to show, this is a JSON, but you don't necessarily need to work with JSON. It's all been parsed. So under the published model, you see that this build creates two types of batteries. Let's take, I don't know, this one as an example. You can see that the target artifact is this, and the dependencies for this is all of those packages. You can see where they're in which read path are them and which type and so on. So this is for the published models. Using this platform, you can also see the release history. So if you got a binary that is promoted from QA to release, again, as part of the promotion, you can have Xray again to run this on a different policy and so on. So you can make the right promotion and security gatekeeping between those promotions. And let's go on to the Xray data to see the detailed information. So when it comes to Xray, you can see that in this case, we have 7 CVEs. We got 17 licenses that have been detected. We see the different violation, and the reason here we see more violations in the CVs because for the purpose of the demo, I wanted to use a policy that populates a lot of information. So in this case, you can see that there are policies on the licenses and policies on the securities, and sometimes you can have multiple policies triggering different violations from different severity levels. And you can also see the descendants tab. So you can, from the package, can drill down into the different artifacts, all the way to the transitive dependencies and so on. And if I go to the security, just hold on. I would take this example, apologies. And I want to show you an interesting CVE. Okay, so same thing. We see a Docker image with the build info, release history, and so on. Okay, so under the CVEs, I wanted to show you an interesting CVE that has additional information. Okay, so we see the CVEs, the severity, which component is going to be found, and under the descendants tab here, it's a Docker image, so you can see, you can drill down all the way to the sub layer, to where the component is being placed. Okay. And under the security, if we take a CVE, you can see that for each CVE, you get the CVE number, the CVSS score. You can see that it has the NVD information with the vulnerable version and so on, the impact path, which can drill down all the way to the component that triggered this violation. So in this case, we have this build that produced this Docker image. In this layer, we have this jar file that inside of it, you have this vulnerable package that triggered this vulnerability. And what I want to show you that is special about this CVE that is not for other CVEs, so we have, as part of the video acquisition, we have the JFrog security research team that maybe you saw on blog posts on the news, a group of security researchers that continuously monitor CVEs and check for potential 0 days. Disclosed more than 400 0 days in the past 4 years. Stay tuned because we recently published an article about malicious packages in NPM and Python, and I can tell you more to come. But as part of this team's operation of checking and creating this automatic scanner that will look for malicious components, this team also have a responsibility to check CVEs and triage them and give security insights about those CVEs. So you can see that the JFrog security research team has defined this CVE as critical. And you can see that whenever there is a critical CVE that is a high impact CVE, because CVSS score is essentially the result of the calculator that you set up that this CVE is vulnerable because it is local or remote, or it has this and that, can lead to remote cause inclusion or denial of service and so on. And you get this number. And there are so many CVEs with so many numbers, but eventually what counts is whether the attacker will try to chase down this CVE or not. And from an attacker point of view, attackers are lazy. And attackers, when attackers triage CVEs, they also look about whether exploits exist. Is it easy to exploit? What are the prerequisites to run the CVE? Is this CVE is easy to exploit, or I need to have dependencies or prerequisites to have the CVE? For instance, the end battery should be compiled without this and that configuration, for instance. So you can see that all these unique insights from the JFrog security group is being displayed also here. So you can see this is like NVD information, usually general information about this version suffered from this on this without any actionable or straight English information about what does it mean. So this is unique JFrog security text about summary, simple English about what this vulnerability is about, details about this vulnerability, something that has more information about the specific functions and what led to this vulnerability, and the reason why it is considered as critical risk. You can see in here that this CV can be exploited remotely, and also under the reference tab, there are reference to advisories, publicly available exploits, and technical advisory about the CVE. So this CVE is really critical because if an attacker would like to exploit this CVE, they have all the technical information they would need in order to exploit the CVE. As opposed that you might have a CVSS score of 9.2 that might not have any exploits or any technical advisory, just the fact that you have a CVE on this component, we have a potential remote execution or denial of service vulnerability without any technical information. So it's very important to prioritize and understand with additional insights from security experts what to tackle first and what's the meaning of those vulnerabilities. Not to mention that in addition to triaging those CVEs and understanding the risks, there are also additional information about remediation, such as starting from upgrade to the suggested fixed version, or mitigate by. So if there are additional countermeasures, such as change the configuration and so on, this can also apply. I want to show maybe there is another interesting CVE in here. Okay. So whenever we have a solution like resolution or remediations about upgrade or mitigate by, or a patch by, if there is patch exists, we can also reference to a patch. So these insights are very powerful when it comes to this. And using the impact path, you can go all the way to the package and see different information about this package and so on. So we went over the Xray, the configuration, the history, and so on. Let's move on to the distribution, which is this piece of the puzzle, and then go to sign pipelines. So first, it's the distribution. Very simple. You can set up, you can configure a release bundle to be a set of batteries that are going to be zipped together. So you can see in this context, we have 178 batteries that are all grouped together in one zip, and this is immutable zip. As part of the information, you would find it has a checksum and its digital signature, so no one can change this this release bundle that represent your release. And using this release bundle, you can send it out using encrypted HTTPS connection from your Artifactory all the way to the edge nodes that you can place on the cloud closer to your Kubernetes or in other places that you would like to deliver. So you don't need to rely on FTP or other methods that are not secured and not allowed to have an encrypted matter. In this case, you can see that we also have Xray data. And even though we have CVEs, there are no violations. So meaning that in this case, we had a policy, and the policy would, I can pull it up, but essentially, if the CVSS score is, I don't know, 8 and above, set up a violation. If it's not, let it pass through. So you can use Xray as the last gatekeeper before sending it out to different edge nodes. Let's see if there are any questions on the chat. No.
We did. I mean,
Yeah.
we can answer this now, Saf. We did kind of speak on, it was based on the security question, but we did obviously have something recently come up for the Log4Shell, and people were kind of curious, how can the JFrog platform protect them? I mean, even not just Log4Shell, I mean, there could be stuff in the future as well. So how can we help them now and in the future?
That's a good, very, very good question. And the answer is that let me use this diagram to explain. So the Log4Shell vulnerability pretty much, I think, caught the whole world by surprise, because Log4j is such a basic open source software component that's embedded in so many Java applications. And if someone would ask you what this component is doing, very simple. It does it opens a file, it opens a log, write a few lines of text, and it closes it. That's it. And along the years, it added more and more functionalities that people did not think it can be used for malicious purposes. And then found out that this vulnerability is very serious, because you can trigger this vulnerability easily from remote. Can sometimes be without any authentication, in case there is logging of the user agent in HTTP request. So sometimes it can be even before authentication. And it pretty much caught the world by surprise. And when I talked with our customers about this a few weeks back, it was a real challenge. It was a real challenge because the process that the customers need to go through is amazing. They first wanted to know, oh, wait, where do I have it? Start with the identification phase of where do I have Log4j as part of my platform? And this is for the identification part. And after they identified it, let's assume they identified it. Usually it took them a few days or weeks. Even today, some customers still trace Log4j here and there, vulnerable Log4j. So then the identification phase was very hard. When it comes to the after they identify all the vulnerable places, they need to figure out how to fix this. It can be either through upgrade, which sometimes is possible, sometimes not possible. It can be either by setting up the configuration of the flag of the environment variable, or it can be. I also saw there is a recommendation sometimes to just remove the JDNI class from the zip file itself. And even after they finish this and deployed, they face the problem of, wait, I did all this work right now, but what happens 2 weeks from now? Let's assume that the developer wants to roll back on Git to the previous version. So how can I prevent the usage of this malicious package? How can I make sure that no one uses this anymore? So we have, and I share the screen. So JFrog mitigate Log4Shell. We have this blog post of all you need to know about the Log4Shell, which is a very comprehensive, has a lot of details about the vulnerability, what causes this vulnerability, how does it trigger, and the different. It's been updated like 4 or 5 times already with all the information about the vulnerability. But we also provided with the remediation steps on how can you utilize the JFrog platform to mitigate the Log4Shell vulnerability. And this blog post has many ways you can utilize the platform to discover or block or also fix the vulnerability in the same version. This is not, we propose this as one of the mitigations that was proposed over the internet. So we offer this, and the platform enables you to do this. Always, it's recommended to update to the latest version. But you can see here that if you would have JFrog with the best practices in your organization, you could have identified all the places you use Log4j in one query, in one shot. You can use, and there are many ways, using Xray and Artifactory and API, many ways you can in one shot identify immediately all the applications. And you can also block, using Xray, you can block the usage of the vulnerable Log4j packages. So going back to the presentation, if you want to prevent a developer from rolling back and use the vulnerable package, you can set up an Xray policy that will block download on the vulnerable packages. And by sitting on where inside the pipeline and leveraging the power of JFrog, you could have, it was very clear that customers that had JFrog platform and could utilize this information would have been in much different situation than customers that need to start understanding where is the software bill of material and which boundaries are being used where. Managing the boundaries is important, and just think about what will happen. Hopefully not, but we can assume that a critical CVE in other technology is going to rise up somehow within the next 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. In case this is happening and you have a new critical CVE, are you ready or not ready for facing this? And if you have the JFrog platform, you have all the tools you need in order to immediately identify, detect where it is, think about the resolution, prevent your developers from blocking the access to this package. And also we have the suggested fix with the suggestion of the security group that can really help you to face these kind of challenges. Courtney, I hope this answered the question. It was I know it's been a long answer, but I think it was very important given the recent situation that we've been in.
No, that was great. I think if anybody else on this call today, if they have any more additional questions beyond that, please, again, reminder to do that in the Q&A chat. And we can also follow up with you after this event as well. But all right, continue.
Thank you. All right, so we went through the distribution and how Xray can scan it and serve as the gatekeeper. And last but not least is pipelines. Pipelines is a JFrog offering of CI server. Just 1 second. Okay, here it is. And what we see here is essentially a pipeline that has a different step of creating an NPM package and using an Xray scan on it, creating a release bundle, signing it, and distributing it. You can see the different runs that we have in here. And if I'm going to see the YAML file, you can see that in the YAML file that describes this whole pipeline, you would not encounter any password because the passwords and the integration are being managed by the administrators of the platform. It's in the other tab, it's in here. So the administrator sets the username and password for integration with all the other systems. And in the YAML file, you have just a friendly name that is being used. And that's how you can prevent the exposures of clear text passwords in your YAML files, which is known to be a very weak area for current servers. Usually log into CI servers, and you just be exposed to many types of clear text password. Not to mention the signed pipeline. So if we go to one of the runs, you see that we have the different runs, the different stages, the success, the pipe info, the resources. And I want to show you here just an example of I want to show you here in the artifacts. Artifact pipe info. Okay. So you can see that in Artifactory, it stores for each run. For each run, it stores the information. Let's just take random one. You can see that each step of the pipeline has a JSON and associated with it the signature of the step. So in case you have the whole pipeline in different steps, let's assume that you have a step and then the next step is the day after. The JFrog signed pipeline will make sure and will verify the cryptographic signature check of each stage that was beforehand before proceeding to the next one. That's how we can make sure that no one interfere or change the boundaries during the whole bid cycle. So by having this, you can make sure that the boundary that you produced is indeed the boundary that was generated in each step in this pipeline. And going back to our big picture, I hope now it makes more sense while we cover the whole many features of the end-to-end JFrog platform to enable secure software supply chain operation and enable DevSecOps from the developer all the way to the end boundaries. I did not went through the whole role base, but of course we have, as part of the JFrog platform, support for SSO, integration with LDAP, and extensive role-based permissions for each user. If you're not familiar, we have pretty much blog posts for every items that was discussed in here, and feel free to reach out to your JFrog representative or the support or whoever you feel like it will eventually get to the right team that can answer you in case you have any further questions. So that's it for now. Courtney, any more last questions from the audience?
We did. We had one come in. I would say it's a fairly straightforward question, but does JFrog support Git scanning?
Okay, this is also a very good question. Because we saw scanning of the source code. So just to clarify, what we've seen is scanning of the dependency scanning using the CLI. And when it comes to Git scanning, and it's planning the roadmap for the upcoming quarters. If you're already talking about upcoming features when it comes to enhancing Xray to scan Git repositories, we also have the video acquisition that occurred a few months back. And the video acquisition brings with it the very unique technologies that holistically look at boundaries and can check for beyond software composition analysis of open source software components. It also have features such as scanning of configuration and contextual analysis, applicability scanners, meaning that understanding the context of the Docker, checking the configuration of the Docker, and cross-check this with the CVEs. For instance, a CV might be relevant according to the software material, but it will mark as okay because the Docker is configured with this and that and that. Because Nginx is configured with security best practices, those group of CVs are not relevant. As well as one of the key features and unique features that Video brings in is the potential 0 days. So as part of the video acquisition, the new Xray will also be able to scan first-party code for potential 0 days. This is a very unique engine that utilizes data analysis and symbolic execution and fuzzing, and it checks the first-party code to find potential 0 days in the code that the developers are having. So the new Xray is going to empower the whole Xray and the JFrog platform to look holistically at the boundaries. So more things to come, even further features are upcoming, but if you would like to hear more, reach out to us.
Great. Awesome. And as a reminder to everyone on the call, if you have a question that comes up after this event and you wish you would have asked it, don't stress about it. We can answer that later. Please email us at webinars@jfrog.com. That's webinars@jfrog.com, and we'll get those answered to you within 48 to 72 hours. And then also, just as a reminder, this has been recorded. This will be sent out with additional assets that you will find helpful. But other than that, I want to thank everyone for joining the call today. I want to thank Asaf for your time. That was some really great information. Other than that, I will sign off. And Asaf, have a great day. Thank you so much, and everyone else.
Thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.